Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Wow. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Welcome to Transformation Talk Radio. Welcome to TransformationRadio.fm. Thank you all for tuning us in, turning us on. If you're listening to this show and you're saying, I don't know, I don't tune into those stations. I don't know how I'm listening to this. Yeah, because what's happening is you're probably listening it from one of our, I don't know, now I think over 100 affiliates. But don't worry about it. We're just here to really just fire it up. But before I do that, Mr. Benny, how you be today, B?
I be good. Thanks very much for asking. You too.
Yeah.
Yeah, good,
We
good.
B to B.
Uh-huh.
We B to B today.
Buzzing around.
That's B to B. Yeah. Beautiful sunny day. Things are happening. And what fun are we going to have today? Here, you ever read? Here, this is so fun. I've got this incredible book. I mean, who writes a book like this anymore? Fabulous, fabulous book. Because when Linda said to me, you're going to be speaking with two amazing women, and they've written this book, The Art and Science of Hand Reading, Classical Methods for Self-Discovery Through what? Palmistry, Benny. Palmistry. I thought, yeah, that's kind of cool, but I'm a visual person. How does that work? Well, guess what? This book is jam-packed with examples. It tells you how, it tells you who, and it tells you what. But today, we just thought, why don't we get these women on the show? I'm talking about Ellen Goldberg and Dorian Berger. And so listen to this. This is what I love about this. We get to talk with two of them about everything you wanted to know about hand reading, but we're afraid to ask today. Those of you out there, Dorian Bergen, sorry. I'm sorry, I got confused with that, Dorian, because actually my dissertation chair had the other name. But here's what I want to say. This is what we get to do with these ladies. It's like each of us gets a path, and we go down the path. Then what happens to us when all of a sudden we're looking at our lives, 30 years later, and look at, wow, look what I do. Look at the book that I have written. And so both Ellen and Dorian here today, for sure, are here as experts. What is the other thing that I love about this? You could get some New York girls on the show today. Myself being born in the Bronx, and lots more about Ellen, lots more about Dorian. But what is it about how they have taken this knowledge and wisdom and integrated it into their lives? When we're thinking about this, there's an art and the science. That's what today is about. What a great show we're getting ready to have. Welcome to both of you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Pat.
And Dorian, I apologize in advance.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
Yeah. My dissertation, my statistician who did my dissertation, that was his name. So I had a flashback right there, and now I'm having a hot flash thinking about that process. So
don't worry. That was a big job, I bet.
Oh, you know what? I wonder if you were to see my palm, what you might say about all of that. But that's what I want to talk with you both about. So great to have you on the show. Ellen, you have been an internationally renowned teacher of tarot and palmistry, right? You've done it.
That's so.
You have founder, director, bringing people along. Dorian, here you are. You're active, you're intuitive, you're curious, you're amazing. Both of you. How did you both get together?
We met at a party.
A party on Fifth Avenue 26 years ago.
Yes, it was a fateful day because we had a mutual friend. We were both guests. And in those days, I used to read poems at parties quite frequently. And once I read Dorian's poem, that was it. She knew her calling, and she became my student, in fact, my star student all those years ago, which led to us being collaborators and partners in this book. And we have worked together on this project for years.
Well, this is really a fun time, right, for us to be talking about this, because I mentioned the book, by the way. I know there's got to be like 600-700 illustrations in the book. I'm so glad you did that. Thank you so much for doing it that way and writing about it like that.
Yes.
We've looked at a lot of books, of course, over the years, and I think we could say that these are some of the best photos. It's very important to have a visual along with the text, and we worked very hard to find examples as well as have the clarity of the visual. And then, of course, Ellen did all of the illustration, created a template, and made it a very special illustration. The illustrations were very
and
special
we felt
because of you, Ellen.
Taken?
They're very special because of your illustration.
Thank you. We felt blessed that we could find those photographic examples within 1 year's time. Dorian had a gallery photographer, and we taught him. I learned from one of my students how to photograph hands, and Dorian gave us a back room in the gallery. She has a major art gallery in New York, and we just kept inviting people over, and to find 300 exact prime examples of every little thing in the book, things that couldn't be drawn, you had to see and photograph. That was an amazing thing. And so we feel very blessed. We feel like the universe supported the project, especially since there were 3 very important examples that were missing in the last week before we went to press, and we thought, they may have to use the scrap art. And that week, those 3 people walked into my apartment to have their palms read, and I was able to take those photographs in my home and get them in the book.
Wow. I love stories like that because, I never thought like a girl like me growing up in the Bronx in the projects would end up in one of, the most beautiful places on the planet. But New York is where my heart is. I just love New York. I don't know what it is. It's got to be the artistry.
It must be the energy here because it is a good town with actually people think, New Yorkers, they're like tough. But the truth is they are soft and sweet in the center.
Yeah.
Well, if I may say so myself, I think across all disciplines, I think the best of the best are in New York. We may talk fast and move fast, do things fast, but in the end, we're kind. We're kind and
well,
sympathetic.
I think what we're talking about, and I love that we're talking about this because, I live in what I believe today is one of the most spiritually creative places, at least for somebody like me. But what we're talking about, we're talking about Seattle, of course. But I have come to know that all across the land, that we can bring things to the forefront. But it leads me to a very important question about palmistry. And that is, just like the stigma of living in New York, and there's a stigma about people that live in Seattle. My gosh, my own family says, you people are like on another planet. Hasn't palmistry had to overcome some of the same kind of stigma, right? What do you ladies think?
Well, palmistry is such an ancient art, and people have been looking at their hands since the dawn of time. We see the cave paintings signed by artists with their hands, used as magical talismans. So we know that all over the world, we find them in Argentina, we find them in caves in Egypt and Spain and France, Russia. In other words, people have looked and known they were special, and people have gathered information But like anything in this world, it can be used in different ways. And things also come in and out of favor. One thing Dorian and I have deep in our hearts is we would love this book, which is written in such a informative, wholesome, and easy to understand. I say wholesome because it's not a fortune-telling book. It's how to know yourself and how to use the hand as God's roadmap to understand your life and how to work with yourself, your characteristics. We've written this. I'm the primary writer. It's based on my 40 years of teaching palmistry. But Dorian and I edited together. We conferred together. We sat side by side for years, and neither of us could have done anything like this alone because, as you see, that book is huge. But we want something like this that is easy, accessible, not shrouded in mystery or fortune-telling, to make it the legitimate mystic science that it is. Because the world is filled with miracles. I guess as a Seattleite, you automatically feel that. But it is filled with miracles. And so this is just another one of the everyday miracles that we encounter.
I love talking about this, and I love the conversation. And I know we have a lot to talk about, Benny, so I'd like to actually skip the break. When I was reading the book, there were so many things I was fascinated by, so many things that many of us who have been thinking about our palms, thinking about what palmistry is, we have this idea that we don't even know where to start. And the reason that I want to say this to you is because we look at our palms and we think, wow, how do I even begin? What do I make sense of? And so let's talk about how do we get started? What you've done in the book, by the way, in leading us through this is just brilliant. Brilliant what you've done in the book. But people listening to this show that are going to say, well, wait a minute, I'm going to go out and buy the book. Tell us about where do we start if we've never done this before, if we've never looked at this before?
Well, first I would say they should know that the title of the book is The Art and Science of Hand Reading, and that it easily can be delivered to their door through Amazon, and it's number one in its field at the moment in Amazon. But we have all been looking at hands and have a certain feeling about what they may be all our lives, whether we have ever studied palmistry or thought about palmistry at all. For instance, we know when a hand looks refined and elegant, We know when a hand looks big and gruff and maybe a little brutal. We know when someone takes your hand and it feels like a limp fish, that there's no energy there and the person isn't really greeting you with any enthusiasm. We know when the person grips too hard and you're really sorry you let them shake your hand because it hurts for 10 minutes afterwards, that they have too much energy and you want to back off a little. There are things we have been looking at all our lives. In fact, as you know, we take in information all the time about people. All of us read everything we can. But when you start a study like this, and if someone would start at page 1 of our book, you would go step by step and be led to how you look first at very simple things. A little overview of what we look at, meaning the shapes in the hands, the lines in the hands, and then we go into the very basics, which are, when you think about them, common sense, right? Dorian, I talk so much because I'm a fast talker.
No, that's fine.
Some of the things.
We have an innate sense of proportion. Just as human beings, we have a sense of proportion. So when you look at a hand, you can tell if the fingers are extra long or extra short, or so that is just a common sense and just innate. We know that. But of course, you have to be trained.
Yes, once you understand that fingers are antennas, you get a natural feeling for pulling in the energy of the universe. That short fingers are going to zip it in real fast, and long fingers, the current's going to take more time to come in. And it starts to let us know, do people move faster? Do people go slower? Right?
Like when we do our book signings, we've done a series. We did it at ABC Home, Open Center, ACA. It's more than a book signing. It's actually experiential. So one thing we do, and we've done it over the radio as well, is we say, here's 5 easy, very simple, on-the-spot ways to give a sense of how flexible a person is, how refined a person is, how detailed a person is. In 2 seconds, you can tell all those things about a person.
In fact, when you feel skin texture on the back of the hand, if it's silky texture, that person has a refined nature. If it is an ordinary texture, and you'll feel a couple of hands, you'll see what most people feel like. Medium texture, that's good, solid human being with, down to earth, good, whatever qualities you find in the hand, they're going to be supported. But if that skin texture feels like sandpaper, and we're not talking about the palm side,
the back of the hand, Ellen is talking about. You just touch. You touch five people. Grab any people around you, your colleagues, your partners. Just feel the back of the hand. Just feel it. All 5.
If it feels like velvet, they're very fine and a high sort of elegant type. If it feels like sandpaper or the bottom of an old scuffed shoe, you know they're rough, and they might have diamond rings on, but you cannot hide the nature from the skin.
Wow. I'm sitting here myself. Benny, are you doing it? Benny, are you feeling like the top of your hand here? Okay, you're not going to believe this, but mine is actually very silky soft.
I would think so.
Isn't that wonderful?
And I don't use hand cream or any of that stuff.
And these things are natural. And imagine, look how we can identify people all over the world precisely and individually just by their fingerprint. Imagine if you use the variety of the 101 things that distinguish a hand. You get such a portrait of an individual. But of course, for us, one of the most exciting things is that the recessive hand, like most people are right-handed, so the recessive would be the left, it doesn't change much, and it shows the pattern given at birth. But the dominant hand, the right one would be, of course, exactly the opposite if you're a lefty, but the dominant hand changes every time you change. And fast. If there is an authentic change, the hand changes to reflect it, so it is actually a self-guiding system to know what you're working with and to allow you to be partners with spirit, partners with life in creating your destiny.
This is called, this is what I love about this. This is called the art and science of hand reading. And I love that you called it that, because I got to tell you, you had me at the cover.
The cover,
the cover.
Great. He shows at Dorian's Gallery.
Oh, my gosh. Amazing. But I want to talk with you about what people think about what we can tell from our palm and what we can't. Some people have seen this in our pop culture. We've seen it in movies. We've seen it, this idea of fate. Do I have a fate? What is it telling me? But almost as if there was no other option but to just settle in and go for the ride. We can't change things. So my question is, what do you each look for? And I know you're 2 different people. I know you study together, but I would like to know from each of you, do you have a different style?
A style of reading hands, you mean?
Yes.
I wonder. That's a good question, Pat, because I don't think anyone's ever asked us that before.
I think everybody, because I listen to students, Ellen's students, my students read. My son also studied under Ellen. I think everybody does have a different style, and it's kind of like where you begin. Do you begin with the thumb? Do you begin with the, it's sort of where you begin and where it leads to. I think the knowledge is the same, but how you put it together is distinctive.
Yeah.
For me, what I do and what I encourage my students to do too, because there are so many things you could look at first, is I follow my curiosity. I know I'm going to get to most things by the time I finish reading a hand, and it's, of course, different. Some hands you only have 1 minute with or 2 minutes with, and others you spend an hour or an hour and a half with. So there's different degrees of depth that you're going to go with people. But if you go for what catches your attention, you cannot go wrong, and one thing will lead to another.
Well, I want to talk with you about, some of the key things that you look for, where we start with this, because, many people that are listening to the show, they may have had some experience with this and they may not. We've heard things like Lifeline. We've heard things like, what does it look like? Do families have kind of, the same idea? But I am curious from you both to get some idea of what is it that people might want to look at? How do we do this and use this fabulous book that you've put together? And then I want to hear some examples of what you've done and who you've worked with and how many times they've called you back and said, oh, you're not going to believe it. Like, I want to know how many times you've heard the words, you're not going to believe it, right?
Well, I can say for sure I get some wonderful feedback. And just last week, someone came to see me. She hadn't been to see me in a number of years because she moved to Chicago. She said, many years ago, Ellen, you told me that I would meet my soulmate by the time I was 46. Now, people often add little extra because I would not have said soulmate. I probably said important relationship. But people add their spin to it. She said, and I had been told by a famous astrologer that unless I married by the time I was 30, it wasn't going to happen. She said, but I held on to what you said. She said, and it saw me like it was like a light through a dark tunnel. And she said, I want you to know, a week before my 46th birthday, I was climbing a sacred mountain in Ireland where I'd gone to visit family. She said, and I met my soulmate on that mountain. And he said, we went up singly and we came down a couple. And she's going to marry him. So it was like, those things give me so much happiness to hear back.
But in general, we're pretty much 100% spot on.
Yeah. People tell us all the time, oh, that is spot on.
Well, I want to ask you about this because I am fascinated by how you can be so spot on, because I read the book and of course I'm going to go back and really read the book, but I didn't even understand about the 7 mounts of the hand. Jupiter, Saturn. I did not know this. Can you both share this with us? Because, we know, people know, you look at the lines, you look at this. But then I'm opening the book and they say, oh, my God, they look at the fingernails, too.
There are, well.
All right, you want to go into the archetypes, Ellen?
Yes.
Please.
I'll take one. Okay.
The hand is the 2 most important features in hands would be the shapes within the palm itself. We're not even talking fingers and their fabulous amount of information, or the fingernails or fingertip shapes, but in the hand, since we think of the hand as a map, it could be a map of the brain, since there are more nerves between the hand and the brain than in any other part of the nervous system, or we could call it God's roadmap, because it's the proof that the higher forces didn't drop us on planet Earth, this crazy place, all by ourselves, but gave us guidance all the time, right literally at our fingertips. But this map has mountains in it and rivers and valleys, and these are the shapes in the hand. The shapes, the paddings that fall. There are 7 special ones in the hand, which we call mounts, but that's short for mountains. And the lines are rivers of energy, different kinds of energy, depending on what they represent. Those mounts have different proportions, and you'll see in the book we always put in what a standard one looks like, what a deficient one would look like, what an exceptional one looks like, and sometimes what an excessive one may be like. And so that people can look at their own and judge. And there are always 2 or 3 that are the leading ones, or occasionally one that is so strong that you can see it eclipses all the others. Once you start to look at palms, you see the shapes within the hand are quite different. And by learning to judge these, and I hope that we have given clear instructions, you might have to read that section twice, but you would learn something of enormous value, because those 7 mounts or mountains, they represent the 7 archetypes of the ancients, or the 7 planets on the ancients. These archetypes are repeated throughout time in every culture in the world. An archetype is a personality pattern that's been repeated so often, according to Carl Jung, the great psychologist, that it has become embedded in the collective unconscious, meaning the consciousness we share with all mankind, so that whether you're living in a primitive culture, a tribe that's never seen, outsiders deep in New Guinea, or whether you're in the most sophisticated London, society, there is always a lover. There is a warrior. There is the scholar. There is the priest. There is the shadow, a dark one, someone who does evil. There is the businessman and the one who understands money, or the healer. There are these various, there is a spiritual leader. There is an artist. These personality patterns may take different forms depending on the culture and the century and the time, but they exist everywhere. And they're in the hand, and by the proportion of the shapes, you can see what blend a person is going to be, what their primary archetypes are, and these influence personality, lifestyle choice, love style choice, best career choices, health indications. To think that we are so run by these primal patterns, you might think, really? Where's individuality? Well, the individuality is in the endless combinations that are possible. And with the section in the book called The Basic Modifiers, we can tell, like the such thing as this, how fine the skin is, how long or short the fingers are, what are the fingertip shapes, which tell us a lot about approach to life. We can see where along the big continuum, whether it's the lowest form of the archetype, the middle, healthy, medium form of the archetype, or a very high, refined form of the archetype, where is our subject coming from? For example, if someone, like I read from Muhammad Ali, and you, when he was young, we were both young then, he was only a year or so older than me, and you see that picture in the book, and he was for sure, he had so much of Mars, the warrior, and that hand was hard as a rock, but the skin, surprisingly, was fine as silk. And so although he was an ultimate warrior, he was a gentleman. He also had a big amount of Venus for love and life, and I'm sure he had a very strong sex drive between Mars and Venus, but he had refinement in the expression of things. But if you found a Mars type with the same big Mars, but that hand was rough like sandpaper on the back, maybe the thumb was big and brutal instead of the refined, almost wasted thumb, the curved, elegant thumb that Ali had. If you saw a brutal thumb, big and clumsy with harsh skin and maybe short fingers and a big grill, because there are marks on the hands, which we explain, on the Venus, that could have been someone who would have beat your brains out with the least provocation, and when he wanted something, he would just take it. And so you can see the variety of types within every archetype, and we covered that. Dorian and I were very careful to make sure that everything about each of the archetypes was included.
In other words, what we could tell from the hand is, of course, the combination of archetypes will give us a sense of the personality, but we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And I think what palmistry reveals is that where you are a little weaker, what you need to develop, where you're maybe too much, where you're excessive. And so
both Dorian and I have changed our own hands a good deal.
Yes, well, over the decades.
Over the years.
I have a great question that's come in from one of our listeners that I want to pop in here and ask. Great question from one of our listeners, clear across the country, actually, out by where you all are. The question is this. Her name is Sue. Sue, that's her name. Absolutely. Hi, Sue. Yes, calling in from Rhode Island. Great. Thank you. Or actually messaging in. I love that. And Sue says, this is fascinating. Dr. Pat, when are you going to give a copy of the book away? Okay, I'm going to do it like in a hot second right here.
Well, you should write to our
Here's
publisher.
Sue's question. Sue's question is as follows. I love this show, but I'm in distraught. I was diagnosed with a bone-changing disease. Yes, RA, rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah. And my hands have changed significantly. Oh, this is, Sue says, is there any hope for me? Will I be able to use the book? Great question, Sue.
That is a big question, and can I take that one, Dorian?
Yeah, you could take it.
Okay. Along with being a palmist, I'm the president of the board of directors of a health institute.
Okay.
And I'm a long-time 26-year cancer survivor who, after chemo, had arthritis in every major joint of the body.
Yeah.
And I would say that there are certain archetypes that are naturally prone to certain diseases, and arthritis goes with the Saturnian, and she should read carefully about that. But if she is having, and I know how devastating rheumatoid arthritis can be, of course she can use the book, but the book is not a prescription for diet and healing. And, of course, doctors don't know very much about nutrition. They get so little training in it. She should go radical, in my opinion, and go raw and go green for a long cleanse. It took me about a year, but I became completely pain-free, except I have troubles in my knees still, but I had it everywhere.
I agree with you completely on that. And we've learned that. We've learned so much about that, in my own healing journey. And as a matter of fact, I want to say in the book that when I read it, you also had pictures of hands. For example, I remember this exactly, where there were pictures of hands where you talked about, I think you referred to them as naughty fingers or so forth and so on.
And those
it doesn't
were not
really
arthritic fingers, interestingly enough. Those were natural formations with not arthritis.
I read that. But what we're trying to say here is that what folks can do is, my gosh, there's so much that you can use and that you can learn, right? And that's what I want to talk about a little bit. Some people take their children, correct? And they say, wait a minute, I want you to look at my baby's palm. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also, what are some of the things that folks should really look at? If I'm staring at my palm like everybody's going to be doing today, right? Until they get the book. So I'd like you to answer that question. But before I do, here's the book. We're giving one away right now, Benny. 1-800-930-2819. 1-800-930-2819. first caller. And before we go to that question, can you please tell folks the best way for them to find out about each of you? Ellen, you want to go first?
Okay. I have a website for my school in Manhattan, School of Oracles. But, these days, Google is just such a wonderful thing. For either one of us, or certainly for me, you could put my name in Ellen Goldberg, Palmistry, New York City, and Google will give you my website. You'll probably easily be able to find my email that I use for work, which is alchemicalellen@gmail. But Google is a fine way to find just about everything these days.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
And Dorian?
Dorian, how can we find out about you?
I probably the same thing. I wear a lot of hats, so I run a 4-generation art gallery in New York City and Chelsea, ACA Galleries. You can come see me. You get a free reading if you come. I'm also, Dr. Pat, I'm going to be in Seattle from August 1st to the 8th at the Seattle Art Fair.
Nice.
And anybody who's in Seattle who's listening, stop by the art fair. I'll give you tickets and come see me, and you'll get a 2-minute reading. I like to read. I'm nosy. So
That's good.
She's very giving. She's very giving. I'm the one who does long readings, but she's doing little readings for free everywhere.
Yeah, I just, but we'll be at the Seattle Art Fair.
I love the art fair. I love that.
Oh, so I'll get you tickets. You can come to the opening.
Sweet.
And also, for your listeners who are in Seattle, and also you, Dr. Pat, I'll give you a ticket. Graham Nash is having a concert August 1st and 2nd, so we'll be there at the concert, and he's a photographer, and we'll be showing his photographs at the art fair, along with Picasso, prints, and ceramics, and things like that. But I think you're very easy to find on the Internet.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, as I said, 1-800-930-2819 for a copy of the book. Dorian, were you going to talk about the baby's hands?
The babies. I have sons myself, and when I first met Ellen, my children were very young, and so, of course, I was extremely interested in every baby that I saw. I looked at their hands, and there's certain indications that are very apparent from the time they're born. Well, actually, in fact, 2 months in utero, the fetus already reveals lines on the hands. The scientists have
it's such a miracle.
That. So it's already, so the question of will and fate, I don't think we ever really answered that question that you had.
Yeah.
So there is a certain amount of fate. I mean, the lines are already there when you're born, before you're born. And then it's what you do with it. You have a will. Some people have more willpower than others. But there are other qualities that, of course, propel us forward. And so I have been documenting the hands of children from the time they were 3 years old all the way through high school every year in Rudolf Steiner class here in New York City. Once a year I would come and take, about 100 palm prints every year. And I watched how the children grew, how their headlines grow as you study, as you learn, as you use your brain. Your headline actually grows and grows deeper. If I saw in a couple of hands a short index finger, which represents Jupiter, the leader, confidence, self-esteem. If that is short, then you are could be lacking in confidence, and just knowing, being aware of your weakness already gives you a head start, and you can start to develop that. And I've seen it in the hands of the children as they've gone through the years to school.
Now, the adult hand does not fully show itself until the child is about 10, 11, or 12, depending. But even that is young. But other things you see from the minute they come out of the womb. Right,
like
Sonia?
the easiest, but the most obvious, and you can, all the listeners can look at their hands right now and determine if they are self-reliant from the time they were born, or they had to learn that as time went on. And so if one can detect where their lifeline is and their headline is, they meet.
Well, the headline is the middle line that goes across the hand, and the lifeline is the one that circles in an arc the thumb. And it's very natural for them to touch maybe an inch or two, then these people worry way too much about the opinions of others and cannot self-validate. They withhold self-validation from themselves.
And that's what you can tell from the time you're born. That's very easy.
That comes in at birth. Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I had a little cousin who I met her when she was about a day old, and she was born with a highly clever, somewhat manipulative pinky. Super bad. And do you know, by 2 years old, she had that whole family wrapped around her finger?
Well, I've got a question for you. You know, for most of my life, but even more now, as I've gotten a little older, I have something unique on my thumb. And people say to me that they don't have this on their thumb. And, you know, you don't think about this like other people. On my thumb, when I look at my thumb, the opposite side of my fingernail, both of my thumbs have lines up and down. And so my friend said
down the thumb.
What?
In a vertical manner.
Yes, up and down. Yes, vertical. Right. Not across my thumb.
Yeah.
Right. Up and down. My right one, so much so that my friend said to me, "You're not drinking enough water." I said, "I don't think that's water. I drink a lot of water." And so I hadn't thought about it till I got your book. My right hand has one long one. Looks like I've been cut by a knife and it's a scar. That's how prominent they are.
Wow.
So I thought, and I tried to look in a book and I thought, what the heck? Now I'm going to ask you, what the heck is going on with those? I don't really think anything of it in my life, but there you go.
Well, this is a very uncommon, very rare kind of mark. And, you know, if you saw one deep, deep line under a finger, we would call it an antenna, bringing the qualities that finger represents into the hand. Well, you can't have that under the thumb because there's a whole other trip. The big ball of the thumb, the Mount of Venus, is there. So I would imagine that deep line is acting as an antenna, and Pat, I think it increases your willpower. And that's how a little girl from the Bronx got to be a radio host in Seattle, because you had the will to go and have the adventure of your life, and you made yourself do it.
Wow.
And Dr. Pat, when I'm in Seattle, if we have a moment to see each other, I'll take a look.
Sounds good. I was fascinated by it because I honestly didn't think that this is different. And when my friend pointed it out, it was like, I have it on both thumbs. Both thumbs.
And not the other fingers? There's no lines in the other fingertips?
Well, there's a few, but not like this.
Few, yeah.
No, not like this. This looks like I've been pressing down on some kind of edge of something.
Whoa.
Yeah, and on my right hand, I'll take a picture. On my right hand, there's one right in the middle. That's the one that looks like you got a scar. And then there's another little one. On the left hand, kind of the same thing. It's longer on the left hand. It actually almost goes down to the first line in my thumb. And, you know, I hadn't thought about it till I read your book. And now I was like looking at my hands. And I thought, what's going on with my thumb over there?
Everything.
And I find that
meaningful.
interesting. Yeah.
Well, I could also send you what I read to people all over the world by phone and by Skype, by sending them instructions on how to take good photographs of their hands, because you can still tell an awful lot. And Dorian could take a picture of that thumb with her phone. She'll probably have much to tell you, but there's nothing like seeing it with your own eyes.
Yeah.
So Dorian will bring home photos, or I'll send you the hand instructions as well, and the photo instructions, and you could send me a photo too.
I will. But those are the kinds of things that, you know, the book, it really does lead people through so many different things. And I want to give another copy of the book away if we could. It's a fabulous book. 1-800-930-2819. Love to give another copy of the book away.
So did somebody call in?
Person.
They are calling in. I mean, they're calling in for copies of the book. Benny's getting that and handling it. Yeah, I just did not want to interrupt you today. And so, yeah, I kind of didn't even open up the phone lines for people. So you both will have to come back for sure when you're in Seattle. Maybe we could do that. Um, there are so many things that you have outlined in the book that most people don't know about. So here's my question for each of you. What would you believe is sort of one of the most aha things that you point out in the book that most people don't know? I mean, clearly there are so many things, but there's almost like when you go on a journey like this, you discover things, even about your own profession. I'd love to hear from each of you what that is.
Did something come to mind right away for you, Dorian?
But, not really, because it's the entire science of palmistry and hand reading is It's amazing. It truly is. And it's a combination. Yeah. Like, you can't separate one finger from another. It's the whole thing. And everything is amazing. I was actually a science major in college. I liked science. And that's why I really took to palmistry, because it's so scientific and so accurate that everything about it, to me, is amazing. I mean,
you do not have to be intuitive at all. To learn to read the hand, because these are scientific principles that can be learned by anybody, all you need is an interest in human nature and a kind of feeling for pulling things together, like when a good cook reads a recipe book and you say, "Oh, I know how that would be different if you added honey to vinegar or instead cayenne to vinegar." You get different kinds of sauces. We can find different kinds of people by putting things together. But Dorian is right. The entire science of palmistry is an aha moment, because I've been reading palms now for 40 years and Dorian for 26 years. And we are never bored. It is one interesting, fascinating thing after another to look at a hand. And I see this with all my students. I've turned out some wonderful palmists in my school, and everybody agrees that it is an endlessly fascinating profession. Mm-hmm. But if you have to go to a little bit of aha, it's the power of the mind. You know how Christ said, "As a man or woman thinketh in their heart, so shall they be."
Yeah.
How the Buddha echoed the same, "With our thoughts we make our world." The power of the mind, and seeing that reflected, because it is the mind that will change the lines, even the ones that are there on the hand at birth. We always have a fate pact, but that fate is not set in stone. It is fluid. And what we see written is what is bound to happen unless we take active participation in changing it. And the way we change it is by changing the mind. Of course, if you change the mind, you also change your actions, but everything starts with the mind. We even actually say that in the Bible, because in our Western Bible it says, "In the beginning is the Word."
Yeah.
What is a word but an uttered thought? It's really in the beginning is the thought.
Mm-hmm. I think the most, the aha for me was in the discussion of the lifeline. I think that our pop culture looks at the lifeline and everything that's said about it. And, you could point to the movie Whoopi Goldberg is in, and you look at the thing and they say, "Oh, you're going to, death." And what was fascinating to me about reading the book was, no, it's much broader than that. It's much deeper than that, right?
Oh, absolutely. The lifeline should really be called the line of constitution. And although on certain occasions it does forecast how life so long may last, mostly it really just shows how long energy is a gift. And people can live longer or shorter than their lifeline. Although I was surprised, just last week I was doing some research, and, it's amazing what you can find out there on the web these days. And I came across Lee Harvey Oswald's handprint, taken probably in jail, maybe a day or two before he was shot. And that was the shortest lifeline. I thought, whoa, look at that. His lifeline is just this little thing. And so he just went right with it. And there he was, assassinated at a young age.
Wow.
I think for me, one of the greatest gifts that palmistry gives is that the ability to understand one another. Because sometimes you meet somebody, or you could know them a long time, but you don't really know how they think, and so if you look at a hand, you can understand a person and understand them for who they are. Like, say somebody is not detailed, and you can't. If they're not detailed, they're not detailed. They're never going to be detailed, and you can tell that. And then you understand. Okay, that person's not going to remember this. Maybe I'm more detailed. I'll remember it. It's, I think, a way. Quite honestly, it sounds like a stretch, but almost to everlasting peace. I mean, if people could really understand each other for who they are, know their weaknesses, know their strengths. Right, Ellen? Then I think
absolutely
there'd be a lot more compassion in the world.
And it would help you to really understand your loved ones. Say, why is this person cooler, and why does he need so much time alone? Well, if you know their hand, you'll understand why people some people are hermits and need time alone. Or, why doesn't this person have ambition? The rest of the family all wants to, be at the top of their profession and very competitive. And you might meet someone who you can see it in the hand. That's never going to be a priority. They don't want responsibility. And it saves so much heartache when you can understand and accept people for who they are, both for you and for the other person as well. So, yes, palmistry helps you understand yourself, and it helps you understand others. And when you understand, you can accept them.
I love this. Thank you both for joining me here today. The hour has gone by so quickly, and I so appreciate all that you both do. I know this is kind of exciting for many, many people. And I only have one last question to ask each of you, and it's a question I ask everyone. And I'd love to know from each of you what your personal message is and what you'd like to leave us with. And again, please give your websites out.
Well, let's see, the personal message for me would be that there is endless possibility for every one of us, and that our own personal evolution is really part of the reason that we took birth, to know ourselves, to become more conscious, and that awareness and consciousness is everything. And I have two websites. I'm also a psychotherapist here in New York, so I have wisewomanTherapist.com and schooloforacles.com. I'm easy to find. Dorian?
Dorian, how about you?
I think it would be very short, because I have been on this journey of inner searching since I was a teenager. I've been reading all the great mystics who came into this world at the turn of the century. So I see what's really important for each one of us is first to know ourselves. That's where you have to know yourself, and then know others. And really that's in a nutshell. That's really what I feel.
I love it. Well, I'm honored to have both of you on the show, and I want to thank you for all that you do.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, I want to say that I know what it takes to put a book like this together, and I have to tell you, this is one of the best books that I've ever seen, and believe me, I've interviewed 9,000 people since I started this 13 years ago.
Thank you,
it is
Dr. Pat.
brilliant.
We're so proud. We're so proud of this book. We really feel it's going to last a very, very long time and help a lot of people.
And I could just see the artistry in it. So I want to thank you both. And I can't wait to connect with you, Dorian, when you come to town. And you know what? Both of you when I'm back in New York, because I do that, just so you know.
Let's have dinner.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm on it. Thank you very much. I will see you all shortly. Mr. Benny, let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
preceding audio was via a Skype call.